So I was here yesterday, talked to everybody in the room, and I think I did okay because on my way out I only got hit by 3 hard snowballs from you guys, so I think I'm in, all right? My name is Dr. Mike. I'm a psychologist, meditation teacher, and former Buddhist monk. What am I doing here at 3 o'clock in the afternoon in a snowstorm? I've been asked to inspire everybody. So I checked out, I asked all my military friends about their yellow ribbon ceremonies, and here's the face. That's what I got. Every single face went. So I thought, I got to do something where I bring up the energy. So hopefully you'll enjoy this presentation. I'm going to cut it down so you guys can all go home and finish your day, right? So when they asked me to inspire a group of Air Guardsmen and women, I thought, how am I going to do that? I wasn't in the military. I'm a civilian. My family's military. My grandpa was in the Army. And I'm thinking, how do I inspire a group of people who do so much in the world and so precise? Your skills, your skill sets are so precise. What you do up in the air, on the ground, with each other, that I don't know what I can add to what you already do. Now, if this was the Army, I'd just crack a PBR and be like, yeah, dudes, and they'd be like, yeah, and then we'd be done for the day. Yeah, right, yeah. Army back there. So what do I do for the Air Guard? Well, I thought about my childhood. Yes, I'm going to my childhood. I thought about, I'm from Chicago. Thought about, is that a PBR or Chicago? Chicago. Remember going to watch the Thunderbirds in Lakeshore, right off of the Lake Michigan. And even as a child, the feeling of the roaring through the body, right? When those jets come over and you feel that roar in the body. And even as a child, I knew there was something special about what was happening up in the air. And so when I got older, I actually got a tattoo of a Thunderbird on my arm because it meant so much to me, those experiences. I would show it to you, but I'm so ripped, some of you might faint, so I'm going to keep my shirt on for this presentation. You can see it? Thank you. I've been working out hard. So I've been thinking about I've been thinking about the Thunderbirds and what it meant to be so precise in the air, 18 inches apart, right? All those tight formations, the passes, what is it called, the Calypso Pass? It's incredible what you all can do. And I know we're not all pilots in the room. We have maintenance, we have weapons, we have medical. Every one of us here works to make the mission possible. But that's what's inspiring. And so I'm going to end this talk talking about an astronaut that founded an organization that I worked for. But so I was thinking about my childhood and what inspired me. And all throughout growing up as a teenager, I wanted to be in the military. Unfortunately, I have not the best eyesight, my asthma, I have a profound dislike of authority, and I did a shit ton of drugs. So, and so I was only fit for the Army, and I'm sorry, my grandpa's rolling over in his grave. And I don't like green. I like blue better. But so I didn't go in that direction. I decided to go to the Soft Corps, which was the Peace Corps, the United States Peace Corps. I did that. I served my country by swinging in a hammock and drinking beer for 2 years in Thailand. I actually worked. My friends did that, though. I became a Buddhist monk, and when I came back from that experience, living in a cave, for a while, figuring out what's important and what's not important, I became a psychologist and have been serving combat veterans for about 6 years now, from all eras. The eras you guys are from, Vietnam, Korea, and even World War II. I've had a chance to meet some of those folks. And so what I'm going to do in the next maybe 15 minutes now is throw a little education out and hopefully a lot of inspiration. The education piece comes from what happens after you come back. And this is all what? The reintegration program, 30 day? Is that what we're doing? And most of you have been gone for over 6 months, is that correct? Okay. My guess is that many of you have had transformational experiences overseas in some way. Traumatic or not traumatic, I'm not making a distinction. I'm not here to talk about just the traumatic parts. My guess is all of you have had some kind of transformation being out of this country, serving in a way that you had chosen in your life. And so what's really important now is how do you reintegrate what you've experienced overseas here, back with your family and your friends and your community. So it makes me think about my grandpa on my mom's side. We're from Hungary, and Hungarians were taken last by the Nazis in the war. So my grandpa was taken and forced to serve in the Nazi army, and then they captured by the Russians, and he became a POW in the Russian army. While that was going on, my grandmother was taken from her home, sent on cattle cars to Auschwitz, and in front of her experienced watching her family murdered. I can talk real to you guys because what you do is real, so I'll talk real. And so she witnessed all of her family being murdered, and she had horrendous jobs carrying bodies to the incinerators. So this is not the inspirational part, this is the real part. And what I learned from watching her grow up is that I didn't know her stories till I was 33. No one told me her story. So what I witnessed was a set of behaviors that I didn't have context to. What I witnessed and what many of my combat veterans tell me about, the anger, the startled responses, not feeling they belong, I had no context for that. I didn't understand where it was coming from. So I would be woken up in the middle of the night. I had asthma. She'd wake me up screaming at me to stop coughing. Now, you would think, what grandma would wake up a child and yell, stop coughing? Like I said, it wasn't until I was 33 where I realized that any form of sickness for her meant death in the camps. And so I finally started to have a sense of context for her behavior. And it made much more sense to me. The reason I'm telling you this is because all of you who have had transformational experiences are different people now. And how you are is going to impact your children, your spouses, and your children's children. So whether it was a positive transformation or if it was a traumatic experience, you are a changed person. And how you communicate and act will go down to your children and their children's children. So the most important piece I've learned as a psychologist working with combat vets and with the military in general is sharing your story is one of the most important pieces that you can do when you come back. So the studies that we have show that if you share your story, your children and your grandchildren are less likely to have depression, anxiety, suicidality. They're more resilient to issues, to problems. They can have more tenacity and fight harder. The research shows those children and grandchildren who don't have the story behind their parents' and grandparents' behavior are more depressed, more anxious, show signs of PTSD. Your story has meaning to it. You don't have to give all the details, but what's really important is to share who you are now with your family so they understand you. If you don't know how to share, if you need help, you come find me, come find one of the counselors and say, I'd like to share some of my story. I want to do it in a way that's helpful to my family. So I really encourage all of you to think about your stories and what you've been through and how you're transformed now. And use that as a map to share with your family. I'm different because I've experienced this. I might not be the same again. I love you the same, and maybe I can't share everything, but I'm different, and you need to know that. So the hardest thing I've worked with is not the combat stories or the combat trauma. It's the tearing apart of the families when you all come back. That's the hardest part for me to work with, because that's the saddest part. You guys and women can handle yourselves. You can come back from an experience and you can grow from it. But if your family doesn't know what you've been through, it's very hard for them. So that's one of the most educational pieces I can offer to all of you here today. Is consider how you share who you are now. So moving on to a little bit of inspiration, I work for an institute in California that was founded by Edgar Mitchell. He was an Apollo. It's all right. How you doing? You don't have snowballs, do you? No snowballs? Okay. Edgar Mitchell founded the institute that I worked for. He was an Apollo 14 astronaut. He, in 1971, landed on the moon. And as he was coming back from the moon, he said he had the best seat in the universe. He was in his capsule at the window. And his capsule was spinning. And in his window, he had visions of the earth, the sun, and the stars, and what he called the whole heavens. If you can imagine that for a second, we've seen it on pictures, movies, but he was there, well above the earth, looking down at us, and had this fantastic experience of enlightenment, transformation, I don't know what you'd call it. But he recognized that his body was made of the same material as stars, as planets, and that all of the issues we think are so important in our world don't exist when you're looking at the world when it's the size of a quarter or an orange. Everything we struggle so hard for in our life, that we give so much meaning, when you're looking at it from a cosmic, interstellar perspective, disappears. Race, sexuality, poverty, these things are very important to all of us, but from the span of the universe, it's not as important. And so it becomes much more important what we get caught up in during the day. Do we spend our day fighting the small things, or do we take an astronaut's perspective of the universe? And do we transform ourselves every single day to live up to our true human potential? And so when I thought about true human potential, I thought about Felix Baumgarten. You heard of him? Mm-hmm. October 14th, 2012. He rose up in a helium balloon 128,000 feet into the stratosphere. Did anybody watch that as it happened? Was that not the coolest thing ever? So I tell you, I work for an institute that was founded by an astronaut. And when that happened, I went to a meeting and I said, the best thing in the world just ever happened. And one of the scientists said, no, the moon landing was even better than that. I said, no, the moon landing was amazing, but you had spacecraft and this guy used his own body. So he was up there 128,000 feet in a capsule and he's stepping out. You all saw, if you didn't see, you need to Google this. YouTube it. He's holding on and he jumps off. His own body is a space shuttle. His consciousness is a cockpit. And his mind is the pilot. That's it. And he free falls 128,000 feet, breaking the sound barrier, going 834 miles per hour with his own body. What's the difference between him and all of us in here? What's that? Red Bull sponsorship? The mind. Nothing. Nothing at all. He took 5 years of his life to prepare for that jump. Each one of us could do that with a Red Bull sponsorship and a lot of money. And a colonel in the Air Force who supported him doing that. Nothing separates us from what he did. It was his mind. It was the belief that his potential was greater than any other limit that was ever put on him before. Not one of us in this room has any real imposed limits on who you are and who you can become. Not one limit that's real. I worked with a teenager who only had one arm. We biked from Seattle to Portland together. Everyone said, you're not going to be able to do it. You're not going to be able to do it with one arm. How are you going to bike that? He didn't listen to a single thing except for his own intuition in his heart. He biked 207 miles next to me with one arm, and he was 13. There are no limits to what we can accomplish. And all of you already kind of know that if you're paying attention to what you're doing here in the Guard. Every bolt is in the right place on an airplane, isn't it? Can one thing be off place? Uh-oh. Shit, I started something, didn't I? They're supposed to be in place, okay? Everything works to make this work. All of your minds work together as a single mind to make these missions happen. But I am putting it onto you to stand up at 120,000 feet and jump off of your capsule into a life of unlimited potential. All of you has that potential to do something unique and startling in this world. So every time you all fly over my house, we live 10 minutes from here. My wife said that one time someone did a flyby, like right above the treetops. Is that true? Who was that? Raise your hand. Seriously, it scared her. One of you in the back? In the back. All right, that's fine. You can do it anytime. Because each time you fly over me, I feel that deep, resounding thunder of power and precision coming right through my body. Why? Do warthogs don't feel that way going overhead? I had 2 experiences of warthogs in my life. One was with Pumbaa, the stuffed animal from Lion King, and the other was with a zoologist in college. That's not a true story. My wife's right there. So you and what you do are the inspiration. I'm bringing some inspiration from astronauts and people who jump from space, but the truth is what we have inside ourselves, the ability to go beyond our limits, is what's truly inspiring. So I want you all to leave here today thinking about what it is you're going to offer in the world that's different. What is your true potential? If you don't know it yet, come talk to me, find me. Come find anybody in here. Find your true potential, live up to it, jump out of that shuttle, out of that capsule 128,000 feet above the earth. And talk to your families, let them see your humanness. Not just the warrior side, but the human side that's within the warrior. Allow them to prosper within you. So I think I'm going to end it there. Godspeed to you all in your missions and your journey. Thank you for letting me come in here today, and take care.